So in regard to Daniel and Shelley and JR and a few other people talking pretty frequently, more or less once a week for most of this year so far, we could take that live conversation sequence and we could talk about why we've done it and why we're continuing to do it, or why we might continue to do it for those of us who are in that mode of, maybe exploring not just why we have, but where we might go, things we might do differently even. So Shelley was just talking. That means it's definitely Daniel's turn. So Daniel, do you have anything to say just briefly, like what have you gotten out of talking with Shelley and I, and why would you continue doing it, and so on?
Yeah, I think I've gained from talking to you and definitely Shelley, I've gained clarity, or just a different approach as far as not kind of doing the same, repeating the same behavior to the point where like I just frustrate myself, where I just have like a panic attack or whatever it is. I mean, it's an intellectual thing, but it gets pretty bad. But I think I've gained clarity, just keeping an open mind and trying different approaches to some things. That's been definitely a big part of it. I mean, there's probably been more, but I think that's been the big part for me.
Okay.
Yeah, just getting other people opening up and giving me their experience. So it kind of opens my eyes to like, okay, this has been my experience, but wow, it's like there's, so what? This has been my experience, but so what? There's many different experiences, and just to kind of keep more of an open mind,
Shelley, do you want to comment on anything Daniel said, or just give a different answer yourself?
No, I agree with what he said. It just gives, the conversations have given me insight into things that into perspectives I just never put weight. I often didn't put weight into, or ideas or lines of thinking that relate to what's going on in my life, like the way I parent my children or the interaction I have with Keith. But I'm blind to, or I didn't have insight into until I hear somebody mention, well, the way I feel when that happens, or my husband or my child says that they feel this when that happens, or as a child I felt this when my mother did this. It gives me a whole different perspective on things that allows me to edit, I guess, my conditioned responses to think of the other person.
And the other person being your child or your husband.
Right, whoever I'm communicating with.
Uh-huh. In particular, though, we have definitely focused on, our primary relationships are what we've talked about a lot, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Or what we've talked about most. So I would say, as a summary of what has changed for me through these calls. Actually, Vanessa, you can comment on anything you would associate with changes you've noticed in me and so on. And Amy, you could too if you want to, in regard to just your observations about Daniel or any questions you might have. But why I've done the calls has a couple things. So let me start with what's changed for me. So taking my interest in my own emotions, my own well-being, and my own appreciation of communication as something that can be really useful but also can be challenging. So taking all of those experiences and then talking about them with Daniel, Shelley, and other people has been a relief for me simply to be talking about them. So relative to thinking about them, writing a song about them, to actually talk to people who aren't, in the middle of my situation, to listen to their thoughts and challenges and breakthroughs, and to share my thoughts, challenges, and breakthroughs. That's really useful to me. Sometimes as I'm speaking, I get value. Not just when I'm listening to Shelley or Daniel, but as I'm speaking, I get value. The thing that's most fresh on my mind is when I was talking Monday night about apologizing to my mom for her experience of me as someone who disrespected her or did not respect her. So as my mom and I a few weeks ago were talking about that, I brought it up, and then she and I were talking about it. That was healthy and wonderful. And then to talk to Daniel and Shelley about it again, and to report to them as people who are like, they're rooting for me. And even though I'm reporting something that already happened, I still have the sense that Shelley and Daniel are rooting for me. So as I tell the story, it's something that I appreciate, that they're listening from not only maybe how they can learn or whatever, but they're listening from how can communication go well, and how can people effectively apologize and then have respect just show up really prominently. Like, it's not there 10 seconds later, it's just all over the place. That can happen. And when I say respect show up, I mean, I guess it is like a physical experience. Back to the issue of like, do I have my aching head and I want to bang my head against the wall because I'm so frustrated? Or a real feeling of a weight is lifted off my shoulders and I'm delighted at the same time as I'm crying or I'm laughing. We laughed a fair amount in that call from Monday. I think I'm the only person who teared up and choked up and got close to crying. But it's not that unusual that something like that will happen. And just as a side note, we've also shared information and talked to other people about health and conversations with in Facebook. So Shelley and Daniel and I don't know each other from a particular Facebook group, but you two know that I participate in several groups, and one in particular called the Primal Diet by Agenis Vonderplanitz, or what I usually just refer to as the Primal Diet group. There's been a variety of controversy, drama, intrigue on that group within this year. Now, it hasn't really happened much in the last few months, actually, but at one time, that was a source of a lot of references that I made, and as the two of you know, and Vanessa also knows, a lot of the people who participated in our public calls where we opened it to anybody, a lot of those people were from that group, so they were talking about the same kinds of stuff. And Daniel and Shelley have missed some of the calls that other people were on, but it's still the tone that we set and the momentum that we set has generally carried through to those other calls. So other people have got exposed to our interests, and we've got exposed to what can we do to deal with stress in general. And everybody has said that relationships can be a source of stress. I don't know, some people didn't necessarily specifically reference that, but everybody who's talked much in the calls has referred to relationships as one of the possible sources of stress, and one of the things that's just really important to them. They want to have their relationship or their marriage or their parenting, they want to have those things work really well. Any question or comment on any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think money can be another stress, but we don't put as much agony into money, I don't think. I want to say least my experience and people I've experienced, we agonize a lot more about relationships than we do money, even though money can also be a source of frustration. You know what I mean?
I do. My thought would be that with regard to a person-to-person interaction, especially a couple, where it's you're thinking we're peers, we're equals, or something like that. That's one way that people can think of it. And if we think we're equals, and yet we're different, and so if I experience disappointment, if I experience frustration, confusion, fear, maybe fear about money, but whatever it may be, and I'm in a relationship, then the person I'm in a relationship with is a natural trigger for, if I'm annoyed or irritable or easily annoyed, the person I'm in a relationship with is a natural trigger for that. Of course, I'm going to, experience that with them. My wife's saying, meaning, yeah, and then also a natural target of blame. I wish my wife would have told me blah, 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 blah. And wow, she's so irritated today. I wish she wouldn't be so she's frustrated. She's disappointed. She's scared. She's all these things that I probably am too. But it's just the mirror or the proximity is right there. So because if we're around somebody frequently, Shelley was saying she might go several days without a whole lot of interaction with her significant other. But when there is interaction, it can be quickly intense, right? So most of my interaction with most people in my life doesn't get nearly as intense as my interaction with my wife can get, right? So that's a fact. We can think of that as a resource, as an opportunity, but certainly at times that's just a frickin' challenge. Any further comment? Yeah. So